This is Barrels and Barrels, a bourbon and baseball podcast, with your hosts, Brandon Spinner and Michael Burns.
And welcome into Barrels and Barrels, a bourbon and baseball podcast. I am Brandon Spinner, as always, alongside Michael Burns. Thank you for joining us. If you are new to this podcast, we talk bourbon, we talk baseball, and I welcome in my co-host, Michael Burns. Mikey, how you doing tonight, dude?
Yo, I am great. With the exception of a Cubs loss today, but man,
yeah,
the Grand Slam yesterday was
ridiculous,
unreal. Yep, unreal.
And we'll get to that game later on in the podcast. But what a game that was! What a 2-week start to the MLB season. A lot of different storylines, a lot of history so far. A lot going on, a lot of fun stuff. You just started T-ball with your daughter. How's that going?
We had our first game Tuesday, April 11th. It went well. My daughter was nervous of
course,
all the people. Go Bonnie, keep an eye on it. And my tummy is sad, but she stuck through it and she played all the innings. The 1 hour time limit hit us, but it went well.
Hey, teaching
I was
them
not
young.
a nervous wreck. Yeah.
That's good. And you're the head coach, so does Michael Burns have a winning record or a losing record? Or do we not
have
score?
F is for friends who do. We have a record of fun to fun, baby.
All right, fun to fun.
No, we lost.
I was gonna say you still kept score, knowing you. So 0-1. I'm
gonna
mark that.
We had one inning where our girls hit 3 solid balls, but right back at the pitcher, and they had a good girl, the pitcher, who threw it right to first. 3 up, 3 down, 1 inning. Otherwise, we would have won.
It's all because of that. You got to learn to get them in lofted. You got to teach launch angle, man. Launch angle.
I taught them how to hit it straight back up middle, not pull the ball too much, not use the hips.
Use all fields. They got to start using right and left field, though.
Just build up the power.
Again, this is Barrels and Barrels, a bourbon and baseball podcast. We welcome you into the Sammy Sosa episode number 21. Yeah. We're going to hop right into this one. Jumping in, you're watching on YouTube, possibly. If you haven't subscribed yet, please hit the subscribe button below. If you haven't watched us on YouTube, what are you waiting for? We've got shorts that we've been putting out there. You can go check us out on YouTube. Just search Barrels, the letter N, Barrels Pod, and that's where you can also find us on Instagram. We're nearly to 1,000 followers. I think last check I saw we were at like 945, slowly creeping up. So go ahead, head on over to Instagram. We've been putting out a lot of content there, reels, some funny stuff, and of course we'll be doing a 1,000 follower giveaway at some point when we get there. And also find us on Facebook. I noticed our Facebook following jumped up like 30 over the last couple of days, so let's keep those numbers going up. Yeah, we're at like 226, and I think we were at like 199 last time I looked. So just about 30 new followers there. Again, just search Barrels and Barrels Pod. You can email us, Barrels and Barrels. We did get one email, and that is at gmail.com from Kyle Eaton asking for a sample of the rabbit hole that we gave away last week. So thank you to Kyle, and there was a lot more people who listened. We had more than 100 people listen to that episode, yet we had one email. So I'm calling out every one of you listeners. Also, we put in a poll in our last podcast on Spotify of who we thought the losing team in each division, who had the best chance to come back and win. The Mariners got 50% of the vote, and the Kansas City Royals got 50% of the vote.
Royals. Hey.
I think someone was trolling us, but I don't know. And speaking of Spotify, that's where you can find us. We'd love to get a review from you. We have a 5-star rating, but we don't have enough reviews or ratings for it to actually give us all those reviews. So head on over. If you're listening on Spotify, please review us there. Apple Podcasts, we're at 14 5-star reviews out of 14 reviews. So thank you to each and every one of you. We still need more reviews as well. So please, this is asking you. You have this app open, you're listening to us, just please jot down something. Maybe you don't like this show. I don't know. We are open to all criticism, all kind words, all words of, hey, we don't like you, stop it. But hey, we'd love to hear anything you've got. So again, go head on over to the social medias and
give us your best.
Yeah, give us your best. And on Twitter, you can find us at Barrels and Barrels. We've been pretty active there. Michael's been active on the fantasy baseball side of things. That is Burns BNB on Twitter. And you can find me WXSpinner89. I did want to shout out my buddy Ryan Post. He is our 64th YouTube subscriber. We're up to 64. Woo. We were at 49 like a month and a half ago. So we're growing. And again, this is Barrels and Barrels, a bourbon and baseball podcast. We start with bourbon usually. This week is the first time I feel like I haven't had to grab my bottle. Michael's got the bottle, and I have the same.
Let's go.
So, Mikey, what are we drinking tonight, bud?
All right, so we got a release, a quarterly release of the Elijah Craig Barrel Proof, and we have the latest release of A123. So if you don't know what that means, what's the numberage there and the letters there, Brandon?
Yeah, so A stands for the first batch release of the year. So that's going to be the first one that they're putting out on the Elijah Craig brand. And then 1 stands for the month of the year that came out. So that is January. So this came out in January. And then the 2-3 stands for the year. Usually it's a 3 times a year release, 3 annual releases, as I pour mine into my glass. And they go the A, B's, and the C's. I don't know if you're watching on YouTube, but you can see I am a pretty good connoisseur of the Elijah Craig Barrel Proof. It's one of my favorites every year. And I'm going to do a fresh crack on the podcast, I think, as well, as we're going to kind of compare a couple of them. But first, we're going to do a review of the latest one, that is A123, as Michael mentioned. The bottle is a little different this year, isn't it? Doesn't it have something on the... I thought that I saw that they were going to be putting... I know it says 12 years on the side. Isn't it on the front now? No?
No, it is not. Nope, it looks the exact same.
Do you know the mash bill?
I do not know the mash bill.
I do know the mash bill. Do you want to hear the mash bill?
Of course I want to know the mash bill. Are you going to tell me?
Yeah, I'm going to tell you. I was surprised. I was not expecting it, but it's 78% corn, 10% rye, and 12% malted barley. Or I'm assuming it's malted barley. It just said barley, but I'm going to assume it's malted barley because usually that's how you put it in. This year's comes in at 125.6 proof. As always, these are 12 years old. So
underrated for 12-year-old.
Yeah, and the MSRP is very cheap for a 12-year-old bottle. Right? If you think about it.
Elijah Craig, the father of bourbon.
Mm-hmm. Elijah Craig, man, I'm a sucker for EC anything. Right, the 94 proof is one of my favorite go-tos at $25 to $30. So, anytime I see a barrel proof, I've definitely got to grab it. The toasted, I think, might set the bar for most toasteds as well.
Yeah, if you're a Buffalo Trace chaser, and you continue to pass up Elijah Craig products, not even just the barrel proof, any of the products, give it a shot. It's underrated. It's not. I'm not gonna say it's underrated because it's rated very well. I think it's just the Buffalo Trace gets too much attention.
Well, this
guy will be walked past. If someone walks in and asks for Blanton's, they say no, and there's Elijah Craig sitting right there on the shelf.
And it's a Heaven Hill product, which we've gone over, that I am very, very fond of. Most things Heaven Hill, you could just pour down my throat, and I'll take anything Heaven Hill. Again, this comes from the distillery in Bardstown. So, first thoughts on the nose. I've got a creme brulee.
Yeah, this is actually I had my first crack of this had the other night. I couldn't resist, but the first thing I noticed, give a little sniff, it's just a nose bomb. I mean, it's strong on the nose flavor.
Yeah.
I get sweetness a little bit, not overly sweet, but like you said, maybe the creme brulee. That was a good one there.
I definitely get oaky.
Sweet. Of course, Elijah Craig, you always get that classic bourbon taste.
Got like a sweet creme brulee and oak, a little bit of that cherry, dark cherry, like a dark fruit to me. Very classic bourbon nose to me.
I love dark fruit aspect to bourbons. That always to feed right at the end is the oak. You get that a light dark fruit right into the oak. It's the perfect. That's the classic bourbon thing.
So I got to break down the fourth wall. You don't know this either, so it's going to be kind of allowing everybody to learn this at the same time. I'm in the process of getting a crown on my tooth, and my temporary fell off today. So I'm really scared what a 125.6 proof bourbon is going to do to my tooth. So you join the ride, and you might want to watch on YouTube.
Bourbon is one of the only liquors that kill all germs, though.
Yeah, well, that's not what I'm scared about. I'm scared of whether it's going to hurt my damn tooth, Michael.
At least the bacteria. If there's any bacteria built up from anything
we're
else
good
you're
there.
doing.
I don't have to worry about that. But cold water hurts it, so I'm assuming 125.6%.
You're drinking it neat though. You're
Yeah.
drinking it neat. You're fine. Don't put no ice cubes in it. You're good. All right, Brandon's taking that sip. Give him a swish. He's
Tooth
not
is
crying
fine.
yet, folks.
Tooth is fine.
Is fine.
Muscling it up, man. Muscling it up.
Pour you another one.
Yeah, that's very good. Very oaky. This kind of reminds me of the oak I got with Knob Creek, where it feels like it's drying out the more it's been in my mouth. A little bit tannic, so to speak. If that makes sense.
Of the 18 Knob Creek?
Yeah. You remember how I was saying it was very, it dried me out towards the back half? Maybe it was because I just swished it around my whole mouth, but this is very good. I do think that this has a little bit of a tannic end to it.
Usually I get that finish that you're talking about, like the Knob Creek 18, when it's nutty finish.
Yeah.
And that's usually what dries the palate out. But I'm getting it lingers on my palate. If I'm talking to you here, I'm still tasting it, which is signs to me of a good bourbon.
It wasn't that I was losing taste. It just felt like I was sucking the moisture out of my mouth, so to speak. That makes sense?
Yeah, could have been the giant swish you did of tooth.
It's probably, yeah. And the
extra,
tooth.
the extra chew.
Yeah, the extra chew. I've got this classic bourbon to me. This is classic Elijah Craig Barrel Proof. It's got some heat to it. I think it's right around 125. This is lower, too. I've got 4 bottles here. Okay, B521 is actually 118 proof.
It's only lower.
C922 is 124.8, as well as B522 is 121. So again, this is right in the middle of the road. Actually, this is the highest of them all. So I guess not. I did have an Elijah Craig Barrel Proof back in
131?
2020. It was like 136.2 or something like that.
Ooh, doggy.
I think it was B520, and boy, was that hot. But this doesn't sip terribly high for 125.
No, I would say it's like the Old Forester barrel pick that we have tasted. That's 131. It is. If you're not used to this kind of brew, it's going to be spicy, and that's all you're going to taste. But if you enjoy a higher brew, you're able to pull the flavors out a little bit, better flavor out of these higher proofs. This is back to, I'm going to enjoy this bottle, as I've already knocked a couple of it out. I did my own maybe tasting when I sent you your sample.
Yeah. Did you put in picks yet? Speaking of that, I did that with my rabbit hole for last week, as I promised. So go check out picks if you want our ratings on some things. We'll try to get more and more of our reviews in there as well, because it'll give you a score and kind of you can see where you may line up. You may have a better palate closer to Michael's. You may have a palate closer to mine, and that might be able to help you out down the road as well when picking out bourbons, which is a great app to use. And I've found a lot of fun with it too, trying to rate and review things just through the Picks app. Oh, I didn't.
So many options.
Yeah, so many
There's
options.
a lot of options.
Like burnt toast or nail polish remover and stuff along those lines.
What did you say it was last week, did you say?
Oh, it was a couple weeks ago. The new riff, I said it tasted like an ashtray. Is that what you were talking about?
Even last week, it was the opposite of smoky.
Oh, dusty.
Dusty. That was in there.
Yeah.
I saw that you were
See?
able to highlight that was dusty in there. They had that
Yeah.
as an option. I was like, no way.
Yeah. And I pulled it out before that Picks app and called it dusty. But it gives you the thought and the option there. Again, we're not sponsored by Picks. We would love to be down the road at some point, maybe. Hint, hint. Just pointing that out. But overall, what do you think? What do you pull off of this? I've just got some pepper in it. I do have some pepper in that for as low of a rye percentage. It's hot, but it's not overpowering. I do feel like the finish dries me out still a little bit, but not overwhelming.
Immediately you're gonna get spice at this high of a proof. You're gonna be like, wow, that's hot. For me, then it calms right down to some of that vanilla sweetness, and then the rye spice comes in. It's a different kind of spice than off the first sip, and then it mellows into the oak and into the caramel a little bit.
I get caramel on the back
So,
and the finish for sure. More so on the back end of the tongue rather than towards the tip. On our podcast rating scale, for those of you who don't know, we've got a 5-scale rating. If this is your first time listening, head on over to our Instagram page. It breaks down all the ratings. Top of the top is Hall of Fame. Second is All-Star. Third is Everyday Player. Fourth is a bench player, which is somebody who comes in with a pinch hit here and there, maybe spot start to help mix things up. And then designate for assignment, meaning get out of my house, get off my bar, get off my team. I don't want you. So, Mikey, where are you at regarding our rating scale?
this is easily an everyday player for me. I think the Heat, it would be hard to make it an all-star.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's borderline all-star, just because of, one, the price, the age. But I think the Heat is hard to go to so often. It's something you gotta be wanting.
Mm-hmm.
But definitely for the year, for the price, and for the taste, knows everything. It's an everyday player for me.
I've got a lot more of a bitterness to it than I expected. It's sweeter on the nose and it's more bitter on the mouthfeel and on the palate to me. For that, I'm going to give it an everyday player opposed to an all-star. I kind of wish that there was maybe a little more sweetness on the palate. I don't quite get the vanilla sweetness. There's a lot more oak. There's a lot more spice, white pepper, even a little black peppery to me. A lot of that cinnamon up front fading to the oak on the back end. I really liked Elijah Craig. I don't think this is their best out there regarding the barrel proof, but there's still two more batches to go. I would buy this if I saw it. And that's why I'm going to give it an everyday player, because I would love to have it on my shelf. Obviously, I have 4 of the last 6 releases, but I guess I don't get the A's because I've got the B's and the C's from the last 2 years. I just haven't found the A's yet. So
because usually about the time of the year that you're trying to save from the lottery, you spent a couple hundred on the lottery, lottery season, and you're like, I got to chill out for a little bit.
Yeah. So I'm going to give this an everyday player as well, trending more towards a bench everyday player rather than the all-star everyday player. So it's like an everyday player minus if we're going grades.
So he's a league average kind of guy rather than above average kind of guy. Right,
for sure. Which is valuable in your lineup, right? You need everybody who's going to be league average to keep your team going. I think that Elijah Craig has put out better stuff. I don't think this is bad by any means. That's my thoughts.
There you go.
Sticking with bourbon, I noticed it on Instagram a couple weeks ago. I don't know if you saw it. Have you seen Blue Run's building their own distillery and where it's going to be? In the drawings for it?
I think I saw the picture, the overhead picture.
Yeah, the blueprint.
Some special architectural shape of some kind.
Yeah, it's almost got like an infinity look to it. Very futuristic, very cool. I really enjoy Blue Run. They started in 2020. I didn't even realize it was that young.
Wow.
And they put out.
We tried it. Tried it at Brinkman's together. Mm-hmm. That was flavorful.
Yeah, very flavorful. I have yet to get my own bottle. It's very hard to get. Every once in a while, they do some releases online, I think through Sealbox, and I was trying to get one of the weather-themed ones. I think it was Seattle Downpour or something like that, and it was sold out within 30 seconds. By the time I got it into my cart, by the time I went to go put in my credit card information, that 10 seconds it took to go to the next page, it was all sold out. But they're building a new cool building. It's expected to open in 2025, so 2 years, and it's in Georgetown, Kentucky, which is just a couple miles north of Lexington, so it should be only about an hour drive from Cincinnati, or maybe a little less. So I'm excited about that. And Blue Run, I love all the things from Blue Run that I've tried, and I can't wait to try more. They're putting out great stuff. I know a lot of that's coming from Bardstown right now, where they just had their own, I believe their Blue Run barrel picks, or they just had this really cool event that they did a live stream. 16 barrels were given out, basically not given out, but you were chosen and you could select it. I put barrels in, but we didn't win. Sorry, I was hoping to surprise you, but we didn't.
You didn't win a contest, Brandon? That's
I lose a lot more than I win, Michael. You just think
I don't
that
know,
I
man. You win all the contests.
I don't know.
Look, I won this bottle here. I won this. They sent me this.
Sometimes if you're one of 5 people to enter a contest, you've got a good percentage of winning. Speaking of that, we're almost at 1,000 followers on Instagram. Go follow us on Instagram if you haven't already. We'll be giving something away to anyone who follows us. You've got a chance. So again, 1,000 followers. We're a little bit away from that. So last week, we talked about in trivia, there was a Gary Sheffield question, and I asked if he was a Hall of Famer. We never actually checked back on that, I realized in the podcast. He is not a Hall of Famer. He did get 55% of the vote in 2023, so he's close. He needs 75% of the vote to actually be voted into the Hall of Fame. So he's close. He had 40% last year, but this was his 9th year, and he's got one more year, I believe, of eligibility. So it's going to be close going into next year. Do you know what his statistics are, though? Have you seen any of this? Have you looked up anything about Gary Sheffield's statistics, and would you put him in the Hall of Fame?
I haven't looked at statistics. Do you have them up, or you want me to look them up?
Yeah, I've got him up. 509 home runs. 200.
He's in the 500 club.
Yep,
2,689
2,689 hits. 253 stolen bases. An on-base percentage of .393, a slugging of .514. That's good for an OPS of .907, with a career WAR of 60.5.
Over how many years?
It looks like he played 22 years in the big leagues for
wow.
6 different teams. Do you want to know who he came into the league with?
Who he came into the league with? Was it the Marlins?
In 1988.
Well, 1988?
At the age of
Marlins weren't even in existence.
He was the age of 19 when he came into the league with the Milwaukee Brewers in the American League.
American League Central.
Yep. So the Brewers at the age of 19, and then he went to the Padres, the Marlins, and then the Dodgers. I forgot about the years with the Dodgers. Atlanta for 2 years, New York Yankees, Detroit, and then he finished off with the New York Mets. So
he was only with the Braves 2 years? That must have been like a big
02 and
push for
03.
them.
02 and 03, and he got All-Star year, and he was third in the MVP voting in 03.
I remember at Turner Field they had a big sign in the upper right deck that was chefs, and everyone got a chef's hat over there.
That's what you were saying last week. It looks like he was a 7, 8, 9-time All-Star, Silver Slugger Award winner 5 times. So I would put him in the Hall of Fame. I wonder if it's like the steroid era kind of deal. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. A lot of those guys that have the stats to get in aren't getting the votes.
Mm-hmm. But his first year with 42 home runs was in 1996, really before the boom 98 when steroids were rampant. He had 22.
Mark McGwire was already big.
Yeah.
Sammy Sosa was already big.
Oh, sure. Okay. You keep telling yourself. How about Barry Bonds?
He
was a Hall of Famer. Yeah, he was a Hall of Famer before he took juice. But even his last year, he hit 10 bombs with the Mets, hit 276 over 312 plate appearances, and he had 100 games played. So even at the age of 40, dude retired at 40, came into the league at 19 years old. Insane. But he's not in the Hall of Fame. So that takes us into our next trivia question. I heard this the other day, so hopefully you didn't hear it as well. But we're going to find out. There are 2 pitchers to be in the top 5 of 2 separate franchises when it comes to wins as a pitcher. Do you know who those 2 are?
Top 5 in franchise wins.
So, for 2 different franchises, this guy, or there are 2 of them, are in the top 5 of 2 different franchises for all-time wins for a pitcher.
Let's go. So I got two guys I got to count.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go with Pedro Martinez.
Okay.
As one. The other one that comes to mind, I don't know who else he played for besides the Yankees, but Roger Clemens comes up. So let's just say Roger Clemens and Pedro.
Are those your final answers?
Yes.
And that is incorrect for both of them. Roger Clemens is not in the top 10 for the Astros. He would be also because he pitched for the Blue Jays and the Yankees and the Red Sox, and it does not look like he is in the top 5 for either of those. Nope, it's not Clemens. It is not Pedro. You ready for the answer?
Is that Greg Maddux?
It's not Greg Maddux either. It is Fergie Jenkins.
Fergie
Fergie. He has 167 with the Cubs, which is 5th in franchise history, and is 93 with the Texas Rangers, which is 4th in their franchise's history. And the second one, you might beat your head over this one. Randy Johnson.
Oh, I was thinking about Diamondbacks in Seattle.
Yes, he is the all-time leader for the Diamondbacks, 118 wins, and he is 3rd on the list in Seattle with 130 wins. Do you know who are the 2 pitchers ahead of him in Seattle?
In Seattle?
Mm-hmm.
Felix Hernandez.
That is the number 1 franchise leader. Do you know who's number 2?
And number 2?
He won't get it. I was
No
really
way.
surprised. He was a former Cub.
Is he in our generation?
Loosely, yes. He pitched for a long, long time.
Ted Lilly.
No, that would be Jamie Moyer.
Oh, man. Oh, that's a good.
Dude pitched for like 400 years, so he should lead some franchise. He pitched for the Phillies for like 20 years. He pitched for the Mariners for like 20 years. He was with the Cubs. I believe he pitched with Maddox on the Cubs. But pretty good trivia question there. That was during the Cubs game on Saturday. They played that. I believe Fergie was like the player of the game, as in like they talk about old players from back in the day. He was their recap of that. So now transitioning into baseball portion of the Bourbon and Baseball podcast. Really crazy couple of weeks here in baseball. I think the top story, though, has to be the Tampa Bay Rays.
Mm-hmm. Tampa Bay Rays. Off to a hot start. I don't know if anybody would have guessed it. But they
Neither
are.
of us did.
Yeah, neither of us did. Neither of us have them in the postseason, pretty sure. You might, I think.
I have them in as a wild card. Currently, as we record this, they are up 8-7 in the top of the 8th. They were actually up by a score of 8-3 versus the Red Sox, and the Red Sox have come back. So I can't crown them 12-0 in this episode yet, but I think they're going to be 12-0. What's crazy is their first 9 games. Did you know that they won by at least 4 runs or more in every single game?
They've been destroying everybody. They have not just pitching, but hitting as well.
Mm-hmm.
Their run differential is already looking
Ridiculous.
mid-season like.
Put this in perspective. Coming into tonight's game, they'd given up 20 runs total within the first 11 games. That's less than 2 a game. Now, they did just give up 7 to the Red Sox tonight, so that puts them at 27 through 12 games, which is still just over 2 runs a game, which you would take. Their run differential coming into tonight was 63.
Oh, my gosh.
Now,
That's mid-season form right there.
Oh, yeah, for sure. The next highest, as I do a quick look, seems in the at least AL is the Yankees at 28. In the NL, the biggest run differential currently is the Brewers at 24. So, like, they triple basically the Brewers, and they double by more than the Yankees, 28-63. So, incredible start. They have played the Royals and the A's for a couple of their series, so we have to kind of tamp that down a little bit. But
hey, they lead the league in home runs.
In home run,
29 home runs.
And that was coming into tonight. I think they hit 3 more, so I believe they're at 32. So insane stuff. They've got a 3.5 game lead over the Yankees. I do think they are going to fall back to earth a little bit, but we'll see. We're going to talk with another expert gambler and handicapper about handicapping futures bets 2 weeks into the game, as well as like maybe some values you might want to look at regarding maybe jumping in on a future here 2 weeks into the season. You can listen for that later on in the episode. So the Tampa Bay Rays.
Do you know where the Rays fall on the most wins to start the season?
I know that it's the most in the wild card era.
Right.
And I believe they are second or third. Well, there's a couple of teams in the 1800s that started like 13-0 or 12-0, but I think the Yankees, weren't they like 14-0 in 1927 or 1928?
No, it's so you're right. It is that they're right now tied 11-0 for the most wins in the wild card era. But then in 1982 and 1987, the record is 13-0. The Atlanta Braves in 82 and the Brewers in 87. Neither one of them finished with fantastic records. The Braves, 89 and 73, was good enough for first in the NL East. And the Milwaukee Brewers in 87, 91 and 71, third in the AL East. They missed the postseason.
That was the Brewers.
Brewers when apparently they were in the AL East.
Well, it's like we said last week. It's early, right? We're only 2 weeks in, 11 games now. If they go 12-0, that'll be not even 10% of the season yet. Still helps their position. I wonder where Fangraphs would put their percentages to get into the playoffs. Let me look that up real quick. But
Flag behind me just fell.
on the flag. Well, Michael is renovating his house. I don't know if you've noticed. In the last 5 episodes, he's been in 5 different locations or has had 5 different backdrops. So the playoff odds. Let's look at this by Fangraphs. So this is as of 9 o'clock on April the 12th. The Rays have the highest percentage to win the World Series right now at 10%, or 10.5%. They have a percentage to make the playoffs, a 92% potential.
92.
Yes.
That's huge.
94% for the Braves is the highest I've seen so far. So 94% for the Braves.
The Braves are higher than the Rays at this point. I
Yep.
think that NL East is much tougher than it is not much tougher, but tougher than the AL East.
I think the amount of talent and the amount of teams potentially wild card wise in the AL is a little higher than the NL. So that's probably what would sway the percentages, right? Like theoretically, the entire AL East could make a run like they did last year at a wild card, right? Even the Red Sox at 5-6 have a higher percentage than the Orioles to make the playoffs right now. The White Sox, the Guardians, and the Twins, you think theoretically could be a wild card contender with whoever doesn't win that division. And then right now, 4 out of the 5 teams in the AL West have a potential of 20% or higher. The Mariners, the Rangers, the Angels, and the Astros currently all have a chance. So you could say that there's a lot more teams in the AL. So that might be why the percentage is just slightly less for the Rays.
Maybe slightly. I think the surprise division right now is the NL West.
Mm-hmm.
The Diamondbacks off to a hot start. The Rockies not looking too awful.
And the
The
Diamondbacks,
Dodgers not being up there.
Diamondbacks 8-5. You know what their percentage to make the playoffs is?
I would hope it's in the. I still think it's going to be in the 70s. They still don't think they're going to do well.
20% chance to make the playoffs
Oh.
as of today. And the Cubs sitting at 16.6%.
The Diamondbacks have pieces. I think they could make a run. They have Drew Jamison just came up and has made his first start today. That was fantastic. They've got the minor league strikeout leader of the year waiting in the background. Or waiting, not in the background, but in the minors, waiting AAA in the wings.
That's Brandon Fart, right?
Brandon Fart, that's right. And then they've got a talented team of guys. Brandon McCarthy, Corbin Carroll, Alec Thomas.
Did you say
Vital
Brandon
Marte
McCarthy?
leading the team. Did I say Brandon? That's
You
not
did.
Brandon McCarthy.
I was like, he pitched for the White Sox a long time ago.
Is it Brandon McCarthy though? The outfielder?
It might be.
Pretty
It
sure
might
it
be a
is.
double. It might be the same name, different player, just like a bunch of Josh Fields, right?
Yeah, but then to finish that off is Christian Walker.
Yeah. He's the first baseman.
First base, underrated.
Yeah, very underrated. I remember he had a breakout year a couple years ago, and I was like, who is this guy? Next story I want to talk about is, did you see the O'Neal Cruz injury the other day in the Pirates-White Sox game?
Yeah.
Sad stuff there.
It's really unfortunate. A guy who was hitting the ball harder than Giancarlo Stanton.
Mm-hmm.
At
Just
6'6",
playing
he
shortstop.
was immensely talented. It's really unfortunate what happened. I think the catcher rule is there to protect both catchers and the runners of no collisions. The catcher gave him the outside lane like he's supposed to, and for some reason he went right into the catcher.
Yeah.
Late slide.
Mm-hmm.
And of course there's Carlos Santana, the veteran. He's going to be backing up his teammate as he's supposed to as a veteran.
Right.
But I really think that collision there was O'Neal Cruz's fault. The catcher gave him the outside. He went right at the catcher. Late slide. You should be Trey Turnering that, Javi Baezing it, head first, reaching as far as you can one-handed. Yeah, it's really, but still doesn't matter how it happened. It's still unfortunate that O'Neal Cruz is going to miss a third to half the season with a fractured ankle.
Yeah, and he's one of the most talented young guys in the league. Last year we saw him when he came up. He struggled a little bit, but like you mentioned, dude can rake, and he's got a cannon too. He's pretty close to a 5-tool player.
He's the tallest shortstop, I think.
Mm-hmm.
He makes records for how tall he is in playing shortstop. Usually you want that shortstop a little closer to the ground, but
Yeah.
we'll see if he stays there.
I'm looking at CBS's playoff percentage. Do you know what they have the Diamondbacks at? Just to make the playoffs. The Diamondbacks, just to make the playoffs.
Well, you said to win the division was 25?
No, that was just to make the playoffs. On Fangraphs, they were 20.0% just to make the playoffs.
Oh, now you're on CBS.
Now I'm on CBS. Their percentage is
CBS
8.
is going to be 8? Because they love the Dodgers so hard. Everybody does.
There must be something wrong with the CBS algorithm because it's already got the Rays 100%, the Yankees and the Blue Jays at 100%, the Guardians at 100%, and the Astros and Mariners at 100%, which I think is all of last year's teams. So they may not have reset that in the app. But
yeah, makes sense.
But it's funny calling you out, CBS.
Get it together, Scott White.
So the Pirates, they've actually been a surprise team so far. Obviously, 12 games in, but 7-5, second in the NL Central. A team that we talked about last week that was kind of one of those a little too early to kind of make a decision. The Seattle Mariners have had a roughish start to their season. They did just beat the Cubs today, and that puts their record currently at fourth in their division at 5-8. What have you thought of the Mariners so far? They've just played the Cubs for 3 games, so we've got a pretty good look.
What's their run differential?
What's up?
What is their run differential?
Their run differential is currently -2.
Youth.
Yeah, 59 to 61.
59 to 61. So they're scoring, but they're
yeah. In 13 games, they've given up 61 runs, so that's more than 4 a game.
So is Gilbert just not giving? Gilbert, Kirby, and Castillo not holding down?
And Ray.
I mean, they gave up what? How many runs to the Cubs last night?
Yep, 14.
That doesn't help.
No.
So the young staff.
Mm-hmm.
It's early. They always say, but the problem is they always say pitchers are ahead of hitters.
Yep.
But it seems like this season hitters are ahead of pitchers this year, and you wonder: is it the pitch clock messing with them? Is it the pickoff attempts messing with the timing? Because stolen bases are off the chart.
Remember during spring training, everybody was saying that pitchers were going to have more of the advantage with the pitch clock because they could dictate the tempo. But now I think that it's really proving that hitters are having a much better role of things.
Yeah, and it's hurting ERAs. It's increasing runs.
Mm-hmm.
That those guys can get on first base, can steal second. I mean, that's how they think the Cubs started today off. Nico got a single, stole second, and then the second batter hit all. Madrigal? Yeah. Oh, was it Madrigal? Maybe I'm thinking yesterday then, because it was Swanson. Now the game I was watching. No, I didn't watch yesterday's game. Was Swanson in there today?
No, Dansby sat out today, hurt because he got hurt yesterday in the 5th inning. But speaking of yesterday, the Cubs and the Mariners game, as we transition from the Mariners, that game was incredible. So I want to tell you my story about it. We started the podcast with it, but so I was in the garage working out, and I got a notification that Eddie Eugenio Suarez hit a 2-run homer, and then all of a sudden it was 7-0, and I was like, oh well, this game's done. I can not worry about this one. And I finished my workout, and I got a notification. It said the Cubs were up 8-7. I was like, what the hell happened? It was the 3rd inning. It was a good day to have the over. I had over 10.5. So cashed that ticket, gambling-wise. Gamble responsibly. But the Cubs ended up winning 14-9 in that game. Nelson Velasquez, you mentioned at the top of the show, the grand slam. How sick was that? He just got called up yesterday.
And that was almost Len Casper, not Len Casper. He's with the White Sox.
Boog Shambi.
Not Boog. JD right before that. Right before the home run, kind of called it. He said, man, what this place would be like if he hit a home run right now. And he got a pitch up that he could handle, and he put that thing 396 feet into the bleachers.
It looked like it was a little further than that, too. That ball was crushed. Up in the zone, 3-1. He got to extend his arms. This Cubs team's fun to watch. Dansby's been really fun. Ian Happ just signed a 3-year, $61 million extension today.
The Cubs signed somebody.
Yep, so that's two who have signed an extension of 3 years, him and Nico. So we've got them for another 3 years. It's fun to see what they're doing on the north side. Hopefully they can continue this kind of baseball over the next couple of weeks. They are currently 6-5, I believe. They missed a game last week versus the Reds because of a rainout. But they're going into a couple of weekend games here on the road, and then they're heading to Oakland before they come back to Chicago to face the Dodgers. And I will be at a couple of those games next week. Hopefully we may have a special guest with us as well. Transitioning into a different NL Central team. Have you seen what Jordan Walker's done?
The dude has a MVP stat line right now.
It's insane. So Jordan,
yeah, he through 11 games to start his career. Dude's batting 326, 370, 512.
yeah,
That translates to 14 hits, and 4 of those are for extra bases.
15 hits now because he got another hit today. It's insane. He has 12 straight games to start the season. He's got a hit. That ties a record. He passed Ted Williams with the record, and he now is tied with Eddie Murray with 12 games to start a career at 20 years or younger since 1900. 12 games to start a career with a hit. That ties Eddie Murray back in 1912. The only other person to do it was Ted Williams in 1939. He had 9.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's who I guess I'd be picking Jordan Walker on my beat the streak, which I need to see if I can still catch. No, but it's too late.
Yeah. So he made his major league debut March 30th, and he has not gone hitless yet in a single game. He's got 50.
He might be the only highlight. Might be the only highlight for the Cardinals right now.
Not Tyler O'Neill. Did you see what happened there?
Man, so I'm a Tyler O'Neill fan. Dude's swole. Dude hits bomb. 2021, he hit 34, I think.
Mm-hmm.
He was injured last year.
Hamstring issues.
And they have a crowded outfield this year, and I think he was ready to break back out into 2021. And I didn't see. You couldn't see the whole. You could only see so much.
Yeah.
But the guy, I think, knew who the ball was hit to right field, and was expecting to stop at third, but his coach waved him on.
Yeah.
So he was kind of already slowing down to round third and run home, where everybody looked like Tyler O'Neill was not even running. Why was the dude not running hard? Well, then he got smoked. I mean, absolutely smoked at home by Ronald Acuna Jr. right field. The ball was hit hard. Yeah, ball was hit hard. Probably was not the right send. So O'Neill was unexpectedly, when that ball was hit, knew he was going to stop at third, and coach waved him. And then his coach, of course, I don't get this. I don't get why are you going to publicly call out your guys?
And this like early in the season too, right? If it was a trend over and over again, I kind of understand it. But this early in the season, it was what, the 5th or 6th game?
You're trying to ruin your clubhouse. You're trying to Tony La Russa your clubhouse, and I mean, you want to be riding. You want to be getting that clubhouse on a high, not to be putting somebody down. And that, like I said, they have a crowded outfield. I think just because of this, Tyler O'Neill is going to be squeezed out with Jordan Walker moving to outfield, Dylan Carlson out there, Lars Nootbaar. And they got one other somewhere out there. I'm a fan of Tyler O'Neill just because of what he did in 21, and he's swole.
Oh yeah, dude is jacked.
Swole.
Dude is jacked.
The son of Paul O'Neill, right?
I believe so. The former Yankee, and he played for a couple other teams and franchises. But
so at the time of the benching, I was like, hey, there was a tweet that maybe they should should just trade him, and I was like, hey, I know Cubs have, but they would never trade intra-division like that.
No, not at all. Yeah, Tyler O'Neill, he is currently 9 for 35 this year, 297 OBP, OPS plus of 75. Not the best start, and yeah, I'm sure a lot of that comes to what happened. He is Canadian. I didn't realize that.
So the next guy I have a little bit of favoritism to last year, not as much this year because I traded him away. Fantasy is Sandy Alcantara,
Mm-hmm. Former
former
Cardinal who got traded to the
former
Marlins
Cardinal
for
for
Marcell
who?
Ozuna. I will forever laugh at that trade because I just saw the highlight again the other day. Do you remember when Ozuna tried to rob a home run and it fell like 15 feet in front of the warning track and he fell off the wall and hurt himself?
Absolutely, will remember that. Thought he was gonna rob a ball, and then all of a sudden did he get injured on the play too, falling off the
I
wall?
think he did. Yeah.
Yeah. So Sandy Alcantara, last year's Cy Young, um, has started I think 3 games.
Three
Yeah, three
games.
games.
Game
The
2.
overall line doesn't look great. He's got a 5.79 ERA
We got roughed up the other
through
night.
eight. Yeah, he got hammered by the Philadelphia Phillies. 9 runs on 10 hits over 4 innings.
Yep. But that was
Um,
after game 2. Did you see what he did in game 2?
yeah, game two, complete game. He was his usual Sandy Alcantara self.
I call him Greg
Um,
Maddux. 100 pitches, shutout, complete game, 9 innings, and I believe that game finished in 1 hour and 58 minutes.
you're correct. It was so fast. 1-0 game, complete game, no pitching changes.
Yeah.
Oof.
Yeah, a classic Greg Maddux type of game. He was the NL Cy Young last year, so he's kind of the only like bright spot for the Marlins overall, right? Like they've got some young talent, but like that is the guy on their team, and if he's got that start to the season, I think it's going to be rough. I see you did you pick? No, you picked Spencer Strider uh, to win your NL Cy Young. I had a thought that he was going to regress. He wants to pitch more. He was the guy who pitched like 225 innings last year. Right?
Sandy?
Yeah, I think
Oh,
so.
Sandy. Yeah, Sandy was pitched like 4 complete games,
Yep.
something like that. But
I'm gonna
his
crack
start
this open.
that he got hammered, he was perfect through the first 2 innings. All the damage happened in the third and fourth.
Yep. Ooh.
But yeah, last year, Sandy, 2022, 228 innings, 14-9. The previous year, he started one more game than that. It went 205, but was 9-15.
Hmm.
So he didn't look like any kind of superstar
Right.
in 2021 and 2022. Man, career year right there. 14-9, 228 innings, 6 complete games.
Yeah. Nasty stuff last year.
Which one did you just pour?
The 521 B521.
Fresh crack of the 521. Took Brandon almost 2 years to crack that bottle open.
Yeah. I may have gotten it last year, and like just seen it sitting around. You know, you ever seen that, or you're like, why is that still around at a store? I think that's how it was. This is dusty to me right off the nose. Like it's
Dusty, eh?
Yeah, dusty. It's got that same nose though. Creme brulee,
It's not
dark cherry. It's not as
definitely
sweet.
not as hot on the nose. I mean, it's almost 10 proof less.
Yeah, it doesn't. It's not as sweet. It's still. I've got creme brulee and dark cherry. And a lot more vanilla on this one, I think.
I think that those sweeter notes are easier to pick out in something less hot.
Mm-hmm. But it doesn't smell as sweet as the other one did. I thought A120. Yeah, that smells way sweeter as I go.
Which one does?
The first one, A123.
Yes, I would agree with you. 123 smells sweeter.
I've got two of them, so I'm going to go back and forth between the two. But let's keep going on through baseball. Stolen bases, that has been even hotter of a topic. We talked about it a lot last week, but the Guardians, the Diamondbacks, their team's stealing some bases out there, and it's pretty cool.
Now,
Pretty cool to see.
it started off pretty hot. I think it slowed down a little bit. But your top 5, top 6 guys, stolen base leaders, the guys who have 6 stolen bases or 5, is Jorge Mateo, Miles Straw with 6.
Mm-hmm.
And then there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys tied with 5 stolen bases. That's Corbin Carroll, Ronald Acuna. That knee is feeling pretty good. And then Gleyber Torres, Nico Horner, and Cedric Mullins and Tim Anderson. And Tim Anderson just hit the IL with a knee, so maybe his knee isn't doing too well now.
And Tim Anderson always on the injured list, it seems. There are 9 teams with 10 steals or more so far. Get this. Both Arizona and Baltimore have 17 stolen bases and 1 caught stealing. The Guardians are at 19-2 as a team. And the White Sox are 13-0, so they have yet to get caught on the base paths.
Really?
It just
That's
to me,
awesome.
it seems like the teams that are really taking advantage of it are having a very high success rate. The worst team right now, the team with the least amount of steals, are the Twins. They have 1 with 3 attempts, and they've been caught twice. But like, I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different teams, 6 different teams that have yet to get caught on the base paths. So the success rate.
I wonder if, success rate. There you go.
Yeah,
I was gonna say, I wonder how many of those guys aren't trying.
Mm-hmm. Right. So I think stolen bases is leading to some more runs out there for sure. It's leading to more action too. It's more fun when you see a runner in play because, right, it's even if the ball's not put in play, there's action on the field where for the longest time, stolen bases we talked about it in our rules episode, continued to trend down and down and down. Now it seems like with it spiking up, there's a lot more action. It's a lot more fun to watch games.
Yeah, in the StatCast era, the percentage of increasing that run scoring from a runner being on first from sacrifice bunts and stolen bases just showed that it wasn't worth it to try.
Right.
And now we're seeing that big guys are more easily able to steal, and it's obviously more valuable.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is definitely softer on the palate, for sure. As I go back to the Elijah Craig Barrel Proof B521, doesn't have as much flavoring to me though as the A123. I don't think. It's
What
soft.
if you went from higher proof to lower proof? If that hurt you at all, hurt your palate?
Yeah, maybe a little bit, but did you just pull from 521?
Yeah, this is 521. I put it.
What did you think?
It's definitely softer. I would give it more caramely feel to it than spice. I'm
It's
able
not
to
as
pull out those fruits more than I am spice.
it's on the sweeter side of things on the palate. But it's not as, I don't think it's as robust. I think that it's not as complex. It's more plain than the A123. Could be that I went from 126 to 118, but this just feels more thin where it's not as full bodied. Does that make sense?
I would guess you are very affected by going from 126 to 118.
Could be.
That not only is it just going lower proof, that's a big jump. 126 is high.
Oh, for sure.
118 is high too,
Right.
but after being at 126.
Who knows?
Well, if you're pouring if you're gonna pour another, I'm gonna guess you would pour the B521 again over the A23.
I'm probably going A123 out of the
really?
two right now. I think that there was more complexity and more of a body to it, right? Like I felt like it filled the mouth better. It had more of a coating than the 118 proof. Again, it could be the proofing, but I think that there's more flavor. It's a little spicier, so that could be part of it. I don't like an overly spicy rye hit, but this seemed like it had more than just like this is like a single.
My favorite word is complex. Complex flavors, complex palate. I agree with you. The A123 is more complex. You get more pieces out of it. It's 5 to a player compared to it's more like a 5 to a player than
The
the
B521, yeah.
Yeah.
I
Not saying
think
that it is, but
right. I think we're both on the same page there. Speaking of on the same page, Aaron Judge versus the Baltimore Orioles, another 2 home runs on Sunday. Do you know where that puts him overall versus the Orioles in his career?
well, they just moved the fences didn't they, in
yeah.
Baltimore?
Mm-hmm.
And over his career, the Baltimore has not been good. How many home runs does he have against Baltimore by itself? I want to say at least 50.
37.
37. That's a year's worth right there.
Yeah. And normally the Yankees destroy the Orioles, and I think Orioles won Game 1 on Friday, which they celebrated that game, I believe, like they had won the World Series because they finally beat the Yankees. I think the Yankees went like something like 18-1 or 17-2 versus Baltimore last year. And they've really just been destroying Baltimore the last several years. So
Yeah, Judge is tied for fourth in most strikeouts in the league to start the year.
still early, but
Still a great stat line though. 342, 417, 658. So
how many bombs?
either hitting it. How many bombs? 4 bombs at
Yeah.
the time of this recording.
Yeah. So, as we're looking at the time of this recording, I wanted to do a standings update. Of course, there are some games going on. Oh, real quick, I wanted to talk about last night. I watched the Toronto Blue Jays and Detroit Tigers game. Your boy Alek Manoah had a rough start. At least the second inning, hit a 3-run home run by Nick Matton on Detroit. Settled down from there. But did you see the catch by Kevin Kiermaier? I tweeted it out on our account the moment it happened. So It was his first game in new Rogers Center with the Blue Jays because he'd been with the Rays for the longest time. So he's played a lot in Toronto. But they just redid their field, or at least the outfield. It looked really good. They changed the dimensions of the stadium. They changed the height of the walls. It always used to be 10 feet from foul pole to foul pole, kind of cookie cutter. They've changed it a bit. It looks really nice. I think I need to get to Toronto at some point here soon to go check out Rogers Center. But in center field,
You do that, eh?
yeah, up there, go see and say sorry, say hi there.
It's boat time.
About time, get some Stan's Donuts and some coffee, and go check out the Blue Jays, and then maybe
It's a little Canadian and Boston accent mixed in right there.
F you, Michael.
You got your khakis? You
Yeah.
got your khakis in your pocket?
En pak my car and have it, yeah. You know what I mean? But got to head out to Toronto's one of the 10 that I haven't been to. But now that they've redone it, it looks really cool. Kevin Kiermaier robbed a home run at the top of the second inning. Insane. And they were like, it was his first game here, and he already robbed a home run, and he's known for doing it, right? It took one game.
One of the best center fielders in the game, defensively.
And the Rays just won to make it 12-0, so they are officially 12-0.
More win for the record.
Yep.
Tie the record.
So
this feels Moneyball-ish right here.
Kind of. They still probably won't win the World Series. But so standings updates. With that said, Toronto, I know we talked about them last week. Did you know that was last night? That was their first game in Toronto. So they were the last team to have a home opener 10 games into the season. That's kind of ridiculous.
That's okay.
But still,
okay.
They were off to a slow start, right? Everybody was saying they had a slow start. They were 6-4. Last week we were talking about how they were last in the division, right, in the AL East. They're now third at 7-4. They had a huge comeback. Oh, that's another game with a huge comeback. Did you see that on Sunday versus the Angels?
Yes, I did see that.
They were
I
down
did see
7-0 as well, or 6-0, and came back and won that game.
6-0.
Yeah. Oh, man. So the standings, the Rays lead the AL East, the Yankees, the Blue Jays, the Orioles, and the Red Sox to round that out. The Twins, the Guardians, the White Sox, the Royals, the Tigers in that order, with the Twins at 8-4 and the Guardians at 7-6. And then in the AL West, this one's probably been the most topsy-turvy of them all. The Rangers and the Angels are atop the division. The Rangers 7-4, Angels 7-5. Astros, after a win today, are only 6-7. And my team that I picked to win the World Series, the Mariners, are 5-8 so far. I do think they may have the pitching is going to start to turn around, and they're going to start to get some wins. But the Athletics are 2-9.
While we're with the Astros, I got. Did you see Evan Gattis tweeting out?
Yes.
Whether he had a few drinks and he was part of B&B at night or something. But Evan Gattis tweeting out, he knew what was coming from CC Sabathia in the ALCS 2017.
Yeah.
2017. Someone asked him, does that mean you knew what was coming? And he said, yes.
Yep.
He tweeted a lot more. Go check it. I don't know if it's still there, but or if he was on a.
I saw it on John
some
Boy
kind
Media.
Of run.
Yeah.
Yeah, Evan Gaddis was on some kind of run earlier this week that he was just tweeting out. Yeah, I knew what was coming. Yeah, I heard the trash cans. Yeah, I hit that home run off Sabathia. Who knows?
Who knows?
Everybody knew. Everybody knew it was happening, and
Right.
he actually is admitting it there.
Good for him, honestly, right? And good to him. I mean, it's out there, so at least embrace it. The other guys are just like, no, like Jose Altuve and Alex Bregman. Moving on. NL East.
My tattoo? What tattoo? Yeah.
NL East, the Braves at 8-4, Mets 7-6. The Phillies are still towards the bottom of that division in fourth behind the Marlins. Marlins 6-7, Phillies 4-8. Phillies are coming into Cincy for 4-game set here for the next couple of games, so they'll probably get healthy here. And then the Nationals at 4-9. NL Central, Brewers 8-4, Pirates 7-5, Cubs 6-5, Cardinals 5-7, Cincinnati Reds at 4-6, and then the NL West, as Michael mentioned, kind of different. Diamondbacks 8-5, Padres 7-6, Dodgers 6-6, Giants 5-6, 5-8 for the Rockies. Still very early here so far, but the one.
What's your biggest surprise of the NL right now? Who's your biggest surprise? Either doing well or doing bad. What's your biggest surprise?
Biggest surprise in the NL right now, I would probably say the Cardinals being so bad. But I knew the Diamondbacks had a talented team, and it's still early. But I think the way the Cardinals have played, they just have not looked good. They've got a bad run differential. Like the Diamondbacks have gotten lucky, if you think about it. They've got a run differential of -2, yet they're still leading that division. Where the Cardinals, they're at -3 and fourth in the division. I guess
You wonder. I saw a stat that the Cardinals pitchers are not doing well, and that Wilson Contreras is rated poorly from a catcher standpoint of like helping his pitchers.
And that's why.
And that's what the Cubs talked about.
Mhm.
That's what the Cubs talked about a little bit.
Yeah.
You saw just last year, when Yan Gomes was catching, what his started ERA was compared to Wilson. I'm not trying to poop all over Wilson, but I am.
Is that because he's wearing different laundry
went
right
over
now?
there. He trash talked the Cubs immediately, which is great for rivalry. I get it. If
Yep.
you're going to come into a new house and you're going to try to win over some fans, you're going to do it. But you got what you asked for right now, 2 weeks in.
It's definitely been interesting, for sure. Who's your NL, surprise?
I'm the Diamondbacks. I knew they had talented team. I didn't think they'd jump out right away like this and be number one after 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Again, 2 weeks is all.
Yep.
But and then close second would be the Phillies at 4-8. The Phillies are so freaking talented. You wonder if that Reese Hoskins injury kind of put him in a down mood a little bit. That did in crutches. Well, again, they
Still early.
have a talent. Yeah, still early. Still a talented lineup up and down.
Yeah.
Bryson Stott is off to a good start for them. A guy who they're not really is not one of their superstars. So Philly's number 2 there.
I wanted to highlight a couple of things. Do you know who leads the league in batting average through the first 10 to 11 games?
Cheat.
You're going to cheat? Luis Arias. Luis Arias.
Oh, I'm not surprised by that. Not surprised by that.
Do you know what he's
Silver
batting?
Slugger.
Do you know what he's batting?
Without looking, I'm going to guess he's batting .562.
537. Do you know who's in second?
Are we going off of how many at bats do they have to have?
I have no idea, but this guy
see it
qualifies.
now. I already had it up. But Matt Chapman
Dude,
is
he had a heck of a
number 2.
week, huh?
He had a heck of a week. 15 RBIs right now.
Yep.
He's batting .477, .521, .841.
Yep.
He had a heck of a week. I think he had a 6 RBI game.
Yep.
And one of those was
That was
his
that.
RBIs.
That was that Sunday game, I believe. And
Yes,
Adam
it
Duvall's still up there with the Red Sox at third. You just mentioned Stott with the Phillies. He's batting .422, and Vlad. So Chapman at .477 and Vlad at .400. Two of the top 5 regarding.
Matt Chapman's in a career year. He could have really put work into this offseason. He had a disappointing start to his career in Toronto, but I think he was more highly regarded than Matt Olson was when they were both together in Oakland.
Oh, for sure. And he had the better defense and he had the better bat for multiple years than Olson did. And Olson was better. I think it was a little easier for Olson to situate himself within that lineup last year than it may have been for Chapman in Toronto. I think as a team, I think the Braves are a better team than Toronto, but that's just a guess. Another name I want to throw out there, I picked him last year to win the MVP, and he was a very high percentage or a high value pick. Luis Robert or Luis Robert, depending on how you want to pronounce it. Finally, he's got a .9 WAR. He's hitting into 347, but he's slugging 714. Has 5 home runs, 9 runs, and 11 RBIs. He hasn't walked yet this year, and he's striking out 24% of the time, so about 0.25% of the time. But he's starting to hit the ball better. He's looking like
he's healthy.
Yes, that is it. And he's a good defender too. So that's another name to watch over the next couple of weeks. But a couple of names towards the top of the list, like Duvall, Robert, and even James Outman continuing to play very well for the Dodgers here through the first 2 weeks of the season. Do you know who leads the league in home runs? There's 4 of them. They're all tied.
I just clicked it. Robert's one of them.
Yep.
Mountcastle's a guy in Baltimore. He was a top prospect for them. Came up and really never put it together for him.
Mm-hmm.
It is a quietly good bat for home runs. He's batting with 5 home runs, 289, 320, 711 slugging.
Yep. And he's got 19 RBIs to lead the league.
I don't have the other 2 up from runs. So
Brian Reynolds with the Pirates.
Mountcastle.
Pete
Brian
Alonso.
Reynolds, that's right.
Brian Reynolds, yeah. So fun stuff there. Do you know
hitting a home run or getting out? The dude's batting 222.
Mm-hmm. And do you know who has the best batting average among teams in the entire league? The best team batting average among teams.
I want to go with the Diamondbacks. Let's go with the Diamondbacks.
The Diamondbacks are not in the top 9, I don't believe. The Diamondbacks are 10th with a batting average of 259. Leading the league through 10 games with a batting average of 290 is your Chicago Cubs.
Let's go!
They're missing out on the slugging. They only have 9 home runs as a team opposed to the Tampa Bay Rays, who are into the 30s. So the Cubs have been lacking the power. Part of that, I think, is the Wrigley Field wind blowing in and not as great of baseball, at least offensively.
Early spring.
Yep.
Early spring.
That's just a couple of early stats.
I don't know. Jared Kelenic says otherwise when he put that one home run.
480
like Schwarber
plus,
home run.
480 plus, I think I saw. Insane. And Kelenic finally coming around too as well. I watched a lot of Seattle baseball. I even watched the Sunday game versus the Guardians that went into extras. So I've watched a lot of baseball over the last couple of weeks. One of the funniest things and craziest things that I saw though on Twitter, this has a tie to you, Michael. Did you see what happened to the Huntsville or the yes, you do.
The Rocket City
Trash
Pandas.
Pandas.
I did because my neighbor across the street got to throw out the first pitch to that same game.
So for those of you who don't know, the Rocket City Trash Pandas in the first game of a doubleheader the other night threw a no-hitter, and they lost, and they gave up 7 runs.
7 runs and a no-hitter.
And they lost.
How do you do that?
You walk a lot of players, you make some errors, and you just every run scores basically.
And you hit a lot of guys. You walk a lot of guys, you hit a lot of guys, and a lot of errors.
A lot of errors and probably a lot of sacrifices here and there, but that was insane. And then I think they came back and threw a 2-3 hitter, or was it a 1 hitter in the game 2 of the doubleheader?
In game 2, yeah. I don't know. Game 2
I know they won.
One got way too much national attention for me to pay attention to game 2 there.
But that's a crazy local tie. How do you do that with the Rocket City Trash Pandas? No hitter loss. I've seen no hitter loss, but I've never seen no hitter but give up 7 runs in a game, which is insane. So that has been it for us regarding baseball. We're going to switch gears kind of. It's still with baseball, but we are going back to the gambling standpoint. And now we welcome in another member of the PhillyGodfather.com. We're going with the 8-Ball this week. We talked with Matt from the College Kids a couple of weeks ago. 8-Ball, happy to have you here on the podcast. How you doing tonight, man?
Happy to be here, doing great.
I love the Looney Tunes hoodie, which you can only see as we're watching on YouTube. That reminds me of the Space Jam movie back when I was younger.
Yeah.
So you can find the 8-Ball at thephillygodfather.com, but also very active on Twitter. That's where I found him, and that's where a lot of people interact with him. That is at the 8, then the number 8, ALL. So it's spelling out what looks like 8-Ball. You can find him on Instagram as well. Just add an underscore at the bottom, and TikTok. You just started that recently. I know you're trying to grow that as well.
Still figuring out how to use it a little bit.
Yeah, I am too, man. I'm on it every once in a while, more so just to watch and scroll, but not post as much. But you can find him there as well. It's baseball here. We're 2 weeks in. There's been a lot of action, a lot of changes within the game from last year with the rules. What is one thing as a handicapper, as looking into all of this, that you're taking into account with the new rules just 2 weeks in?
So with the bigger bases, you're seeing an uptick in stolen bases this year. A lot of teams are being more aggressive. And when the weather, the humidity starts kicking in later on in the season, you're going to see that start to bring the run totals higher. Right now, you're seeing run totals around 8, 8.5. I think we're going to see similar to the juice balls a couple years ago, where you're going to see totals at 9.5, 10 every day.
Yeah, and have you noticed that games are starting to trend towards the over already, or are they pretty even so far?
I'm noticing that the games that do go over, they're flying way over. You'll see a total at 8.5. The game will land 14, 15. I don't know if you saw the Cubs last night.
Oh, I saw the Cubs.
Yeah, I think the total was 10.5. It ended up, scoring like 20, 22 runs that game. So I think you'll see a lot of that.
I had the over. Just saying. But yeah, I know. Especially weather. We talked about this with Matt, but that's going to play into it as the temperatures start to rise. What have you noticed stolen bases wise? You mentioned it's going to be higher run scoring. Is that because there's just better run scoring positions?
Well, the bases are bigger now, and teams are being a lot more aggressive with the bigger bases.
Yeah.
Pitchers
What have
are
you
time them better, I think, with the pitch clock. So I think teams are catching on to that as well.
And speaking of the pitch clock, what do you think that's doing to the gambling world itself?
I think it's helping the regular season in terms of fans and viewers. I think it's going to hurt the product in the playoffs if they keep it the same, because the whole thing about the playoffs is a chess match back and forth between the batter and the pitcher. Right. And if you don't have that tense moment, I think it takes away from it.
So with nowadays, prop bets are becoming more and more of a thing, right? As states are becoming more and more legalized, there's the same game parlays and all of that. With more stolen bases, have you noticed any of those prop bet numbers being juiced higher, or are they just higher in total? Anything along those lines?
So I haven't seen a big adjustment on the props. I mean, I don't bet a lot of props in baseball besides, strikeout pitchers. In terms of the other ones, I think they're right around the same, but you might see them adjusted as the totals go higher and higher.
Mm-hmm. Now, when it comes to like a home run prop, I know every once in a while you'll throw one of those on Twitter. Like, how do you decide a Kyle Schwarber? Is it the pitching matchup of the day, or is it just you think he's due? He's been swinging it better.
Well, the pitching matchup's part of it. If he has a good, matchup against, let's say Corbin's pitching, you have Mike Trout. Obviously, Mike Trout's a good matchup, but a lot of it depends on the weather and the stadium they're at, the park they're at that day. Certain stadiums like Citizens Bank Park, Coors Field, Wrigley, winds going out, it just adds on to it.
Yeah, we saw that last night in Wrigley itself. Tampa Bay Rays have started off very hot. One of the best starts in the best start in the wild card era, but going back to the Yankees, I believe it's the best start. Do we just condone them and call them World Series champs now, or what do you think of this team?
Now, I think they're going to come back down to earth, but obviously they always have elite pitching every year. It's going to carry them. Their hitting's been fantastic. I don't think they can keep that up as the season goes along, so I think you're going to see them regressing. But they've hit, 32 home runs in the first 10 games. Last year it took them 30 games to get to that total, so they're definitely, overplaying what they should be right now.
Yeah, so being that they've got a 12-0 record, they've got a big lead in the AL East already. Is there a way that you're looking maybe at a potential future bet that has a better value now, just 2 weeks in, than maybe a couple of weeks ago?
To win the AL?
AL East or the AL altogether? Just do you see trends so far that just tell you, okay, maybe the Blue Jays have a better odds now? What were they, like plus 300 at the beginning of the season? I don't know what their current odds now, but would you buy now with that being said?
So I think the division is going to come down to the Yankees and the Rays. It comes down always to pitching. The Blue Jays are a great team, great hitting team. I don't trust their starting pitching. Manoah's been a little off this year. You have Kikuchi, seems like a waste of money with that contract.
Yeah.
Gausman's been all right, but besides that, they're really weak in terms of depth pitching-wise. So the Rays are a great bet if you already took them. If not, Yankees, I'd look at their numbers. In terms of the AL, I still love the Mariners. I think they haven't hit their stride yet. You have Robbie Ray. You have Castillo. You have Logan Gilbert. You have a lot of young arms there, a lot of young talent. Julio Rodriguez, Cal Riley, Ty France, Suarez. So I think the Mariners, you can still get them 20, 25 to 1. I think they're a great bet.
To win the AL?
Yeah, to win the AL and to win the World Series.
Yeah, so you would jump all over that if the number's still 20 to 25. There's a free bet from the 8-Ball. Anything else regarding maybe futures or a game that you have circled on the calendar? I know the Phillies come to Cincinnati this week. I know Great American Ballpark can tend to run over. How do you determine that? Is it the home run favorability? Is it just the pitching matchups itself?
Well, I think Bailey Falter's on the mound tomorrow going against Lodolo. They just saw Lodolo. So when you see a pitcher that soon, like, a week later, you know his tendencies, you know what to expect. I think you can expect a better game from the Phillies this time around. So I would look at the Phillies number. I think it's close to even right now, so it's a great number to take them.
So grab the Phillies at even for Thursday night's game as well. As the one who just forecasted for that game, 76 degrees at first pitch. Wind's going to be blowing out to left field right down the line. So
I have to take the over as well.
Maybe, depending on where the number's at, right? How do you determine where, say it's 8.5 or 9.5, how do you determine whether you want to buy it or not?
Want to
where's the value at? Yeah.
Oh, where's the value at? Well,
yeah.
It all depends on the winds, the humidity. Every game's different, obviously, pitchers. You just have to look at the stats and statistics and make a decision.
And then last question I have for you. So for those just getting into betting now, there's a 1-unit move, a 2-unit move, or sometimes you've heard them called percentage moves. I know that's what you guys at the PhillyGodfather.com use. How do you determine, okay, I'm going with a 2% move or a 5% move? I know you're very good at that, picking those out. Like, do you have any idea? Like, is it just that the value is so great that you want to bury that number?
So when we're looking at, let's say last night we had a 5% move on the Twins. Basically, we saw a downtick in Lance Lynn's velocity. And he'd given up 3 home runs the game before. I think he's given up 4 in total in 2 games. So his velocity's down. You saw Buxton get to him in the first inning. Unfortunately, they couldn't capitalize any more than that. But they got to him early, and that's the kind of things we look at. That combined with the weather, humidity, and, he's a fly ball pitcher. So that adds in.
Well, thank you. You can find 8-Ball over at Twitter at the number 8, ALL. So, again, that is the word 8 followed by the number 8 ALL. On Instagram, just add the underscore, and on TikTok, same as Twitter. Thank you for joining us, 8-Ball. Really enjoyed having you on. All of you guys from the Animals over at the PhillyGodfather.com always treat me well and treat us well here on the podcast. So if you want to find them, go check them out. So once again, thank you to the 8-Ball from the PhillyGodfather.com. Thanks for joining us, man. We'll have to have you back.
Anytime. Thanks for having me on.
And again, thank you to 8-Ball for joining us here on Barrels and Barrels of Bourbon and Baseball podcast. Again, you can find him Instagram, Twitter, as well as TikTok, and at thephillygodfather.com with all the other animals. We had Matt from the College Kids a couple weeks ago, Philly Godfather himself, the guy in charge of the whole thing. Amazing group of people there, so go check them out. He did just give out 2 free moves, saying to maybe potentially put some money on the Yankees to win the AL East now, because the odds might be a little bit better with the Rays having so much more of a grip on the AL East now that most people didn't expect this early, right? It changes the odds. You might be able to get better value there. And he's still saying throw some money on the Seattle Mariners to not only win the AL overall, the AL pennant, but the AL and the World Series. If you can find them at 20 to 1 or 25 to 1, you still may be able to find that. So go check that out. Again, a big thank you to the 8 Ball on Twitter, as well as from the PhillyGodfather.com.
Great.
Michael, fantasy camp, fantasy baseball camp, anything that you guys are cooking on this week, any player this week that you think might be a good potential pickup over the last couple of days that you've noticed that may be available?
That may be available. Ryan Mountcastle at first base. Dude's got 5 home runs. He's hitting for decent average, like we just said. He is K'ing a lot, so that could come down. But like we said already, Ryan Mountcastle of the Orioles should continue giving you home runs.
Is James Outman available in many leagues, or has he already been snatched up?
He's been pretty swooped up already. But one thing, if go look right now. Go look right now. If Bryce Harper is available for some reason in your league, just because he's on the IL, go pick him up. The dude has already been cleared to hit. He's taking swings on field in the batting cage. He's coming back much earlier than they said of All-Star break. He could be back in May.
That's a lot quicker than a lot of people anticipated. What about Joey Weimer? Do you know?
Joey Weimer of the Brewers.
Weimer, is that how you say it?
They got a lot of highly regarded guys in that outfield, infield. I think Bryce Terang, Garrett Mitchell, Joey Weimer. Weimer wasn't supposed to start, but I think they had an injury to their outfield that gave him the opportunity. He's
from the University of Cincinnati.
Is he?
Yeah.
There you go.
So
Brewers have a lot of options there. Garrett Mitchell, like I said, I'm not too high on Weimer. You want to see how he figures out. I think there's some other options out there for you. Long term, if you're playing in a dynasty league, if he's still available, go grab Logan O'Hoppe, the Phillies and Angels #1 prospect last year at catcher. The dude already has 4 home runs to start the year in 31 at bats. So long term catcher value, go grab Logan O'Hoppe.
And the last question, I've got a pitcher, maybe a thought for you. I've just noticed that he's in the top 11 regarding WAR in the major leagues so far. Anthony DeSclafani, I would assume he's probably available in a decent amount of leagues.
Yeah, he's pitched 12 innings, only have a .73 ERA, and what I love to look at for pitchers overall, mostly starting pitchers, WHIP, walks plus hits divided by innings pitched. Anything around 1, from .8 to 1.2, 1.15, I think is great. That's a great statistic, easy one-liner to look at for me. ERA, they could have one bad outing,
right,
and it really blow up. But yeah, and Anthony DeSclafani, .49 WHIP.
Not a bad thought.
Off to a great start.
Yeah, over there, and he's a former Red. I know he was a highly regarded pitcher for the Reds and just never really panned out. He was always hurt, but he's had a pretty decent career. I think he went to the Dodgers for a little bit before he headed to San Fran into the Bay. And you can always get more information about fantasy baseball from the Fantasy Baseball Camp guys over there. Go check them out on Instagram. Michael doing some great things over there. That is going to wrap it up for the Sammy Sosa episode. Barrels and Barrels, a Bourbon and Baseball podcast, episode 21. Being that it is our Sammy Sosa podcast, I did want to ask you, Mikey, favorite Sammy Sosa memory?
I was at 1998. I was at home run number 59. I'm pretty sure my mom checked us out of school. We played hooky that day, and it was September 11th, 1998, that we went and saw Sammy Sosa hit number 59, baby, against the Milwaukee Brewers.
So I saw Sammy hit a bunch of home runs in Milwaukee. My dad and I used to go to Milwaukee a lot to go catch up games, and he crushed it in Miller Park. And that was when Miller Park was relatively new. My favorite Sammy memory probably had to be in the NLCS versus the Marlins when he hit that tank of a home run into the camera well in center field. I think it was like 460 feet or whatever it was, and people were just losing it. Or maybe right after September 11th in 2001 when he ran out with the flag.
With the flag, yeah.
With the flag. But this has been
fantastic.
The Sammy Sosa episode. We made it to 21 regular episodes. We've got more in the tank. We're going to have more tastings coming through. I know we've got Larceny Barrel Proof. I've already talked to you guys a couple times about the Blue Notes we've got Age of our Art of Alchemy coming in. We're going to have a tasting on that here soon. And also Barrel Craft Spirits sent us Barrel Batch 34, Bourbon Batch 34. So we're going to try that here shortly. I've got to get that out to Mikey here soon. So we've got a lot coming in down the pike the next couple of weeks. In the next couple of months, we'll at some point have more interviews and more Bourbon 101s. We'll learn more about us throughout the time as well. Again, if you've made it this far into the episode, we are about an hour and 25 minutes in. Thank you for listening in. You can find us, Barrels and Barrels, on YouTube. Please hit the subscribe button below if you haven't already. We're trying to get to 100 subscribers by the end of May, so we're a couple of weeks away from there, so hopefully we can get there. Send this out to your friends. If they like baseball, they may enjoy some of this as well. Follow us on Instagram. We're almost to 1,000, Barrels and Barrels Pod. That's also where you can find us on Facebook. Review us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. We're on Stitcher, Amazon Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and iHeartRadio Podcasts as well. Thank you to each and every one of our listeners who chime in, comment, and just tell us what they think about the episode. We'd love to hear what you thought about this as well, if this has been your first episode.
If you drank what we drank.
Yeah.
If you drank what we drank tonight, let us know what you thought of it, where you ranked it on our system.
I know Daniel, which is Bourbon_Hunt on Instagram, he just commented that he really loved the rabbit hole from last week, the High Gold. That was his favorite when he went and visited this distillery. So if you've had this, or if you're a fan of the Elijah Craig Barrel Proof line, we'd love to hear your thoughts on what you thought of A123 already, or if you haven't gotten it already, I think, personally, grab it. If you find it at the price of $69.95 to about $75 is about how much I would pay for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Me and Brendan here reviewed A123, and then we compared it to B521.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we both agree A123 wins it out.
I think so.
Between those two.
That's the one I continue to grab, and this is all I have left. I'm going to have to mooch some more from you or go find my own. And speaking of that, Michael loved the rabbit hole so much last week, he went out and bought his own bottle.
I did. I went and stopped into the liquor store right next to the grocery store, which is not a good thing. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to buy myself something. And it was between the Rabbit Hole and the Four Roses Small Batch Select, which is severely underrated.
Yes.
Severely underrated. I was like, you know what? I rated that thing as an all-star. I got to grab it. And I grabbed that Rabbit Hole a High Gold.
And I'm about 40% left of mine. So I really hit that hard over the Easter weekend as well. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Follow us there at Barrels and Barrels. You can find Michael B&B Barrels. You can find Michael Burns B&B, as well as myself, WX Spinner, as well as YouTube, Barrels and Barrels Pod. Email us any questions, any thoughts. We're going to have more t-shirts out there. We just put in an order, but we'll have a couple extra, barrelsandbarrels@gmail.com if you want one. Again, Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, Google, iHeartRadio Podcasts. And did I say Amazon already? I think I did. But please rate and review us. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Any last words, Mikey, for our friends, family, and listeners?
Let's go.